What if I told you about a weapon that's completely invisible, one that can travel across the entire globe in seconds, and doesn't just steal information, but actually causes physical destruction in the real world? Well, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. This is the story of Stuxnet, the world's very first digital weapon, and it's the story of how one cyber attack completely changed the rules of war forever. And the stakes here are incredibly high. That warning from former CIA Director and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, well, he's not being dramatic. He's describing the reality of a new kind of warfare, one that really kicked off with a single, unbelievably sophisticated computer worm. You know, for the longest time, we thought of computer viruses as, well, annoying, right? Things that stole your passwords or just messed up your computer. But back in 2010, security researchers stumbled onto something that changed everything. This wasn't just malware. This was a weapon, forged from nothing but code, with a seriously sinister purpose. Yeah, this thing wasn't after your credit card numbers. Its mission was way, way more ambitious. It was designed to jump that gap between the digital world and the physical one, to get inside industrial control systems. We're talking the digital brains of heavy machinery, and basically command them to tear themselves apart. It was a digital ghost in the machine built for physical sabotage. And the crazy part? It actually worked. The attack was a jaw-dropping success. But in succeeding, it proved a terrifying new concept, that a country's most critical infrastructure could be taken down from thousands of miles away, without a single boot on the ground. It basically gave the green light for a whole new kind of global conflict. Stuxnet really did create a new reality. So let's start there. Let's look at this new kind of war. Because the world it created is one where our power grids, our water systems, our transportation, all of it is now on the front lines of a completely invisible conflict. And listen, don't just take my word for it. According to experts like Robert Lee, and this is a guy who spends his entire career defending these exact systems, we are nowhere near ready. It's a blunt warning. We know an attack on our infrastructure is coming, yet we are still wide open. So what are we really trying to defend here? It's not just data centers and websites. We're talking about something called operational technology, or OT for short. This is the tech that runs the physical stuff in our world, the actual pumps and valves in a water treatment plant, the switches that keep our power grid running, the systems that make sure trains don't collide. And this brings us to a really, really critical distinction. We're all used to hearing about IT security, right? Protecting data, protecting privacy, but OT security is a totally different ballgame. The number one priority isn't confidentiality, it's safety and reliability. Because when OT gets attacked, the lights can go out, hospitals can grind to a halt, and clean water might just stop flowing. The consequences are physical and they are immediate. So to understand how we got into this mess, we've got to go back to the beginning. Let's dig into the origin story of the weapon that proved all of this was even possible. Now, while the rest of us first heard about Stuxnet in 2010, its story probably began way back around 2005. It was part of a top-secret program, reportedly codenamed Operation Olympic Games, and it had a very specific target. The whole thing was supposed to stay completely in the shadows. At the time, Iran was making huge strides with its nuclear program at a facility called Natanz. A conventional military strike was on the table, but that could have kicked off a massive regional war. So the US and Israel allegedly chose a different route, a cyber attack, designed to quietly and cleanly derail the program from the inside. And how they pulled it off, it's like something out of a spy movie. The Natanz facility was air-gapped, meaning it was totally cut off from the internet for security. So Stuxnet had to be smuggled in, probably on an infected USB drive. Once it was inside, it laid low, hunting for one specific thing: the Siemens software that controlled the uranium centrifuges. Then it took over, subtly making them spin either too fast or too slow, causing them to literally rip themselves apart. And all the while, it was feeding all systems' normal data back to the human operators, who had no idea their machinery was being destroyed right under their noses. So what was the end result of all this digital sabotage? Well, it's estimated that Stuxnet physically destroyed nearly 1,000 of Iran's nuclear centrifuges. 1,000 machines, just gone, wrecked by nothing more than a piece of code. It set their program back years. Look, this was so much more than just a clever hack. It was a genuine turning point in the history of conflict. It was the moment we crossed a digital point of no return. As the former head of both the CIA and NSA, Michael Hayden, put it, the whole world was watching. Stuxnet wasn't just a new tool, it set a new precedent. It basically broadcast to every other nation on Earth that, hey, this is a legitimate thing you can do now. Attaching another country's infrastructure with malware is officially on the table. It's really hard to overstate how much of a game changer this was. It was the first malware we know of to cause physical damage. It proved that even super secure, air-gapped facilities could be hit. And technically, it was a masterpiece. It used 4 different zero-day exploits. These are software flaws that are completely unknown to the good guys, making them almost impossible to defend against. Finding and using even 1 is a huge deal. Using 4 showed the unbelievable resources behind this thing. So, where has all this led us? What came flying out of the Pandora's box that Stuxnet opened? Well, it's unleashed a chaotic and, frankly, much more dangerous landscape of threats that we're dealing with right now. If Stuxnet was like a surgeon's scalpel, incredibly precise, targeted at one facility, built for one mission, today's threats are more like a shotgun blast. They're widespread. They hit everything from small-town water utilities to major hospitals. And the actors aren't just 1 or 2 superpowers anymore. Now you've got countries like Iran and China in the mix, plus a whole ecosystem of criminal groups who are just in it for the money. And you can see how the threats have changed. Yeah, espionage is still a big piece of the pie, but look at that huge slice right there. Ransomware. It now makes up about 1/3 of all attacks. Criminals figured out they can just hold our critical infrastructure hostage for a quick payday, just like we saw with the Colonial Pipeline attack. And the big nation-states? Oh, they haven't gone anywhere. In fact, they've just ramped things up. Just as one example, according to one report, attacks from groups tied to Iran surged by over 130% in just a 2-month period. They are actively going after U.S. industrial systems in really key areas like our water supply and healthcare. So this all brings us to the most important question, right? In this new era of conflict, how in the world do we protect the systems that our entire society is built on? All right, so what's the game plan? Well, experts pretty much agree on a few key things. First, we have to stop treating operational technology security like it's just a subcategory of IT. It needs its own strategy, one focused on safety. That means real partnerships between government and private companies and clear, simple guidance from the Fed so everyone's on the same page. But maybe the biggest thing, we have to invest in visibility, because at the end of the day, you can't protect what you can't see. And right now, most of our critical infrastructure networks are effectively flying blind. And that leaves us with the central, nagging dilemma that Stuxnet unleashed on the world. Sure, it might have been seen as a cleaner alternative to dropping bombs, but by opening that door, by legitimizing this new kind of warfare, did we actually create a world that's far less stable and far more dangerous for every single one of us? That's the question we all have to grapple with now.